The text message arrived like a ghost from the past, 5 simple words that shattered 23 years of silence. I'd like to see you. Eliza's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering onto the kitchen counter as if it had suddenly grown too heavy to hold. Her father, or rather, the man who had contributed half her DNA before disappearing when she was 7, had materialized from the void with casual presumption, as if he'd just stepped out for cigarettes yesterday instead of abandoning his family for over 2 decades. The morning had started normally enough. Eliza had been preparing for her mother's 60th birthday celebration, a milestone event she'd spent months planning. Grace Parker had raised 2 children alone, worked double shifts as a nurse, put herself through graduate school, and never once complained about the husband who'd walked out, leaving nothing but empty promises and a mountain of debt. This celebration wasn't just a birthday. It was a testament to her mother's strength, to everything she'd overcome. And now, like a cruel cosmic joke, Daniel Parker wanted back in. Who died? Marcus asked, entering the kitchen with his coffee mug. 5 years of marriage had attuned him to Eliza's expressions. Her face must have betrayed her shock. Nobody died, she said, her voice unnaturally high. It's just, she hesitated, unable to form the words. Instead, she pushed her phone across the granite countertop. Marcus read the message, his brow furrowing. Daniel Parker? As in, my father. Yes. The word, father, tasted bitter. Sperm donor is more accurate. Jesus, Marcus whispered. He set down his coffee, abandoning any pretense of a normal morning. What are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What do you do when a ghost materializes and asks for recognition? Eliza had imagined this scenario countless times over the years. The dramatic confrontation, the cutting words she would hurl at him, the satisfying slam of a door in his face. But now that the moment had arrived, she felt 7 years old again, standing at the window watching his car disappear down the street, not understanding that goodbye meant forever. Nothing, she decided, snatching the phone back. I'm doing nothing. It's Mom's birthday in 2 days. I'm not dealing with this right now. But the message lingered like smoke, impossible to ignore. As Eliza drove to work, memories infiltrated her mind, her father teaching her to ride a bike, his laughter when she'd finally balanced without training wheels. The bedtime stories with different voices for each character. The broken promises that began to multiply. The fighting that made her hide in her closet with her hands over her ears. And finally, the day he left, when he'd knelt down, promised to call every day, and then vanished. She'd waited by the phone for months. The second message arrived while she was in a staff meeting at the elementary school, where she taught 3rd grade. I heard about your mother's birthday celebration. I'd like to attend. Eliza nearly choked on her water. How did he know about the party? Who had been in contact with him all these years? The betrayal felt fresh, as if he'd abandoned them yesterday instead of decades ago. She excused herself from the meeting, ducking into the empty hallway to call her younger sister. Sophia answered on the second ring. Hey, what's up? I'm about to go into surgery. As a second-year resident, Sophia's schedule was brutal. Did you know Dad was trying to contact us? Eliza demanded, skipping any greeting. The silence that followed was answer enough. Soph, you knew, didn't you? He found me on LinkedIn 6 months ago, Sophia admitted. He sent me a message saying he was sober, that he'd been through rehab and wanted to make amends. Amends? Eliza hissed. The hallway suddenly felt too small, the fluorescent lights too bright. He abandoned us for 23 years and he wants to make amends? And you didn't tell me he contacted you. I didn't respond to him, Sophia said defensively. But I didn't delete him either. He started following my updates. He must have seen my post about Mom's birthday. Great. Just great. And now he wants to come to the party. As if he has any right to be there. As if he hasn't missed every single birthday for the past 2 decades. Eliza's voice echoed in the empty hallway. She lowered it, aware of classrooms nearby. What am I supposed to tell Mom? Maybe you should talk to him first, Sophia suggested cautiously. Find out what he wants. I know what he wants. He's gotten old and lonely and wants to ease his guilty conscience by playing happy families. Bitterness coated every word. I'm not letting him ruin Mom's day. Eliza, I have to go. Just don't respond when you're angry, okay? We can talk about this tonight. The call ended, leaving Eliza with the unsettling realization that she was shaking. Not just her hands, but her entire body, vibrating with an anger she'd thought long buried. She'd done therapy. She'd worked through her daddy issues, as her college roommate had glibly called them. She'd built a life independent of her father's absence. Yet here she was, coming apart at the seams over a text message. The school day passed in a blur. Eliza went through the motions, reading aloud, solving math problems, breaking up arguments over colored pencils, but her mind kept returning to those messages, burning a hole in her pocket. By the time she pulled into her driveway, a third message had arrived. I understand if you're angry. I'd like a chance to explain. I'm staying at the Courtyard Marriott downtown. Room 312. He was here. In town. Not reaching out from some distant location, but physically present, breathing the same air, perhaps even shopping at the same grocery store where she bought her weekly provisions. The thought made her skin crawl. Marcus found her sitting in the car, engine off, staring at her phone. He tapped on the window, startling her. You okay? You've been sitting out here for 20 minutes. Had it been that long? Eliza climbed out, the evening air cool on her flushed skin. He's in town. Staying at the Marriott. Marcus's expression darkened. Do you want me to go tell him to leave you alone? The offer was tempting. Let Marcus be her shield, her warrior. It would be easier than facing Daniel herself. But some battles couldn't be delegated. No, she said finally. I need to handle this myself. Whatever you decide, I'm with you, Marcus said, squeezing her hand. Just don't let him hurt you again. Inside their home, a renovated craftsman with the sunny yellow kitchen she'd always dreamed of, Eliza paced, unable to settle. She should call her mother. Grace deserved to know her ex-husband was in town. But what would that accomplish except to dredge up painful memories right before her celebration? The decision crystallized. She would meet him. Alone. Not to welcome him back or offer forgiveness, but to make it absolutely clear that he wasn't welcome at the party. She would protect her mother from this intrusion, just as Grace had protected her children all these years. Eliza changed into jeans and a sweater, armor for the confrontation ahead. I'm going to see him, she told Marcus. Don't wait up. The drive downtown was surreal. Every stoplight offered a chance to turn around, to choose avoidance over confrontation. But Eliza pressed on, white-knuckling the steering wheel. The Marriott loomed ahead, a modern glass structure reflecting the city lights. She parked in the visitor's lot, giving herself one final moment to breathe before entering the lobby. Room 312 was on the third floor, at the end of a long hallway with identical doors stretching into the distance. Eliza stood outside, hand raised to knock, frozen by the reality of what waited on the other side. 23 years of questions. 23 years of birthdays, graduations, heartbreaks, and triumphs he'd missed. 23 years of his absence, shaping her into the woman she was today. She knocked, 3 sharp raps that echoed her heartbeat. The door opened, and there he was. Daniel Parker. Older, grayer, with deep lines etched around his eyes and mouth, but unmistakably the man from her childhood photos. The man who had once been the center of her world. Eliza, he breathed, her name sounding strange in his mouth. You came. She hadn't prepared for the physical impact of seeing him. How he stood slightly stooped, as if carrying an invisible weight. How his eyes, her eyes, the same unusual gray-green, widened with recognition and something that looked almost like fear. Can I come in? She asked stiffly, unwilling to have this conversation in a hallway where anyone might pass by. He stepped back, gesturing her inside with a jerky movement. The room was standard hotel fare, beige carpeting, generic artwork, a king-sized bed with too many pillows. A half-empty glass of water sat on the nightstand. No alcohol, she noted, remembering Sophia's comment about rehab. Thank you for coming, he said, hovering awkwardly near the door. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. Eliza remained standing, maintaining distance between them. I'm only here to tell you that you're not welcome at Mom's birthday celebration. I don't know what you're hoping to accomplish, but you can't just appear after 23 years and expect to be included in family events. Daniel flinched but didn't argue. I understand. I don't expect forgiveness, Eliza. I know what I did was unforgivable. Then why are you here? The question escaped before she could temper it with politeness. Why now, after all this time? He gestured to the room's small table and chairs. Could we sit, please? Reluctantly, Eliza took a seat, perching on the edge of the chair as if ready to flee at any moment. Daniel sat across from her, hands clasped on the table, knuckles white with tension. I've been sober for 18 months, he began. Part of my recovery program involves making amends to the people I've hurt. You and your sister and your mother, you're at the top of that list. Amends, Eliza repeated flatly. And how exactly do you make amends for abandoning your family? For leaving Mom with a mountain of debt and 2 young children to raise alone? For missing every milestone, every achievement, every moment when we needed a father? Her voice rose with each accusation, years of suppressed anger bubbling to the surface. Daniel absorbed it all, his expression a mixture of shame and resignation. I can't undo what I did, he said when she'd finished. I can't give you back those years. All I can do is tell you that I'm sorry, profoundly, deeply sorry, and that I'd like a chance to know the woman you've become. And that's supposed to be enough? Eliza's laugh was bitter. Sorry, and we all move on? Do you have any idea what you put us through? Mom worked herself half to death. Sophia and I grew up wearing second-hand clothes, going to discounted summer camps, watching Mom count pennies at the grocery store. I had my first job at 14, so I could buy my own school supplies. Daniel's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Your mother is an extraordinary woman. I knew she'd raise you well, better than I could have. Don't you dare, Eliza hissed. Don't you dare try to paint your abandonment as some noble sacrifice. You left because staying was too hard, because being a husband and father required more than you were willing to give. Yes, he admitted, his voice breaking. Yes, I left because I was weak and selfish and addicted. I left because I couldn't face my failures every day. I left because alcohol seemed like a better companion than my own self-loathing. He wiped roughly at his eyes. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Eliza. I'm asking for a chance to apologize properly, to all of you. Something in his raw honesty pierced her armor. Not enough to forgive, not even close, but enough to recognize the human being beneath the monster she'd constructed in her mind. Mom's birthday is supposed to be a celebration, she said, softer now. Having you there would change that. It would become about you, about the past, about everything she's worked so hard to overcome. Daniel nodded slowly. I understand. I won't crash the party, I promise. But would you consider, he hesitated, clearly weighing his words. Would you consider telling your mother I'm in town? That I'd like to see her, on her terms, when she's ready? The request seemed reasonable, but Eliza wasn't ready to be his messenger. Why don't you call her yourself? I tried, he admitted. She blocked my number years ago. Of course she had. Grace Parker was nobody's fool. She'd cut ties cleanly, focusing on moving forward rather than looking back. Eliza stood, the decision made. I'll think about it. That's all I can offer right now. Thank you, Daniel said, rising as well. That's more than I deserve. He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small, wrapped package. This is for your mother. Would you give it to her? No pressure about when or how. Eliza hesitated before taking it. The package was light, rectangular, wrapped in simple silver paper. What is it? Something I should have given her long ago. The cryptic answer wasn't satisfying, but Eliza slipped the package into her purse anyway. I should go. Will I see you again? The question followed her to the door, weighted with hope she wasn't ready to acknowledge. I don't know, she answered honestly. I need time to process all this. Back in her car, Eliza sat in the darkened parking lot, trying to reconcile the broken man she'd just met with the villain of her childhood memories. Both were real. Both were Daniel Parker. The father who taught her to ride a bike and the father who'd abandoned her when she needed him most. Her phone rang, displaying her mother's name. Eliza took a deep breath before answering. "Hey, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart." Grace's voice was warm, familiar. "Just checking on the party details. Is there anything you need me to bring on Saturday?" The normalcy of the question, so disconnected from the emotional hurricane Eliza had just weathered, was almost comical. "Just yourself," she managed. "Everything's under control." Except it wasn't. Not at all. "You sound strange," Grace observed. "Is everything okay?" Eliza had never been able to hide anything from her mother. Even as a teenager, her feeble attempts at deception had been transparent to Grace's perceptive eye. "Actually," she began, then faltered. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you." "I'm listening," Grace said, her tone shifting from casual to concerned. "Dad contacted me." The words hung between them, crackling with electricity. "He's in town. He wants to see you." The silence that followed was profound. Eliza could hear her own heartbeat in her ears, counting the seconds. "Mom? Are you there?" "I'm here," Grace said finally, her voice carefully neutral. "How did he find you?" "He contacted Sophia first through LinkedIn. Found out about your birthday. He's staying at the Marriott downtown." I just went to see him." "You what?" The shock in her mother's voice was palpable. "Eliza, why would you do that?" "I wanted to make sure he wouldn't show up uninvited to your party," Eliza explained. "I wanted to protect you from that." Grace's sigh carried decades of weariness. "Sweetheart, it's not your job to protect me from Daniel. It never was. But he hurt you. He hurt all of us." "Yes, he did," Grace agreed. "And I've spent 23 years rebuilding our lives without him. I'm not interested in reopening old wounds just because he's decided he's ready to play dad again." "He says he's been sober for 18 months, Eliza offered. "Part of a recovery program." "Good for him." The words were clipped, final. "I hope he stays sober. I hope he finds peace. But that has nothing to do with me or my birthday celebration." "He gave me something for you," Eliza said, glancing at her purse where the small package sat. "A gift, I think." Another silence, this one charged with unspoken emotions. "Keep it," Grace said eventually. "Whatever it is, I don't need it." "Are you sure?" Eliza pressed. "Don't you want to know what it is?" "Eliza," Grace's voice softened. "I let go of Daniel Parker a long time ago. I had to for my sanity and for you girls. Whatever he's offering now, apologies, explanations, gifts, it's 23 years too late." The certainty in her mother's voice was both admirable and troubling. Had Grace truly moved on so completely? Or was this just another form of self-protection, the same stoic facade she'd maintained throughout Eliza's childhood? "I understand," Eliza said, though part of her didn't. "I'll tell him to leave us alone." "No," Grace said, surprising her. "You don't have to do that. If you want to have a relationship with your father, that's your choice. I won't stand in the way of that. But don't do it for my sake, and don't expect me to join you on that journey." The permission was unexpected. For years, loyalty to her mother had been synonymous with rejecting her father. The possibility of separating those two things had never occurred to Eliza. "I don't know what I want," she admitted. "I'm angry with him. I have been for most of my life. But seeing him tonight, I don't know. It's complicated." "Of course it is," Grace said gently. "He's your father, regardless of his failures. It's okay to have complicated feelings about him." The conversation ended shortly after, with reassurances about the party and promises to talk more the next day. Eliza sat in her car a moment longer, staring at the hotel where her father was staying, wondering what Grace's reaction to the gift would have been. Curiosity got the better of her. She removed the small package from her purse and carefully unwrapped it. Inside was a velvet jewelry box, aged and worn at the edges. With trembling fingers, Eliza opened it to reveal a pearl necklace, a single strand of luminous beads with a delicate silver clasp. Tucked beneath it was a yellowed photograph of a young Grace wearing the same necklace, radiant in a simple wedding dress, Daniel beside her looking impossibly young and hopeful. On the back of the photo, in faded ink, "To my Grace, may these pearls remind you of our love, formed through pressure, growing more beautiful with time. Forever yours, Daniel." The sentiment hit Eliza like a physical blow. Here was evidence of a time before addiction and abandonment, when her parents had genuinely loved each other. When Daniel Parker had been capable of tenderness and commitment. She closed the box, wrapping it carefully again. Whether she'd give it to her mother, she wasn't sure. But she couldn't dismiss it as meaningless, not after seeing the history it contained. The next morning, Eliza called in sick to work, something she rarely did, and drove back to the Marriott. Daniel opened the door looking surprised, as if he'd expected their one meeting to be the end of it. "I need to understand," Eliza said without preamble. "I need to know why you left and never came back. The real reason, not some sanitized version." Daniel invited her in, offering coffee from the room's small machine. They sat in the same chairs as the night before, but the air between them felt different, charged with possibility rather than just anger. "The drinking started before you were born," he began. "I'd always liked alcohol, but after your mom got pregnant with you, it became more than just social. It was my escape, my way of dealing with the pressure of becoming a father." He stared into his coffee cup as if reading the past in its depths. "By the time Sophia came along, I was a full-blown alcoholic, though I wouldn't have admitted it then. I was still functioning, holding down my job, coming home most nights. But I was emotionally absent long before I physically left." Eliza remembered those nights, waiting for a father who arrived home after she was in bed, the smell of whiskey on his breath when he kissed her goodnight. "Your mother tried to help me," Daniel continued. "She begged me to get treatment, staged interventions with friends, even threatened to leave once. Nothing worked. I'd promised to change, stay sober for a week or two, then fall right back into the bottle." "I remember the fighting," Eliza said quietly. "The way Mom would cry after you passed out." Daniel winced. "I was a monster. The alcohol turned me into someone I didn't recognize. Angry, bitter, paranoid. I accused your mother of things she never did, said horrible things I can never take back. So why leave? Why not get help?" "Because I couldn't face my failure," he admitted. "Every time I looked at you girls, I saw what I was destroying. Every time I looked at Grace, I saw her disappointment. Leaving seemed easier than staying and trying to fix what I'd broken." He met Eliza's gaze directly. "It was the most cowardly thing I've ever done. And once I was gone, the shame kept me away. Each year that passed made it harder to come back, to explain. You could have called, written, anything." "I did at first," Daniel said. "I'd call when I was drunk, which was exactly what Grace didn't need. Eventually, she changed the number. After that, I convinced myself you were better off without me. That became my excuse for staying away." The raw honesty was both painful and strangely healing. Here was the truth Eliza had sought for years, not hidden behind platitudes or excuses. "When did you finally get sober?" she asked. "After my third DUI, 2 years ago," Daniel said. "I spent 6 months in a rehabilitation facility, then moved into a halfway house. Started attending meetings daily. Got a sponsor who wouldn't let me hide from myself anymore." He offered a self-deprecating smile. "It took hitting rock bottom, losing my job, my home, nearly my life, to finally face what I'd done." Eliza absorbed this, trying to reconcile the father of her childhood with the man before her, flawed but fighting to be better. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she said honestly. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." "I understand that," Daniel said. "Forgiveness isn't why I'm here. I just wanted you to know the truth, and to tell you that I'm proud of the woman you've become, even though I had no hand in it." Something shifted in Eliza's chest, a loosening of the tight knot she'd carried for decades. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. "Mom doesn't want her gift," she said, withdrawing the wrapped package from her purse. "But I looked at it. The pearls are beautiful." Daniel's expression softened. "They were her grandmother's. She wore them at our wedding. When I left, I took them, not to sell, though God knows I was desperate enough at times. I just wanted something of her to keep with me. He pushed the package gently back toward Eliza.
Keep them.
Maybe someday you'll want to give them to her. Or keep them for yourself, a reminder that there was love once, before I destroyed it. The gesture felt significant, a transferring of memory, of legacy. Eliza tucked the package away again, not rejecting it this time. I still don't want you at Mom's party, she said. It would change the whole tone of the day. But, she hesitated, weighing the words carefully. But maybe we could meet again. Not right away. I need time to process all this. But someday. The hope that flared in Daniel's eyes was almost painful to witness. I'd like that. Very much. They parted with an awkward handshake that turned into an even more awkward half-hug, the first physical contact between them in 23 years. Eliza left feeling unsettled but also lighter, as if she'd set down a burden she hadn't realized she was carrying. Grace's birthday celebration went ahead as planned, a joyous affair with friends and family gathered to honor a woman who'd faced adversity with grace and determination. Eliza watched her mother laugh and dance, accepting congratulations and well wishes with characteristic warmth. No one would guess the emotional turmoil of the past few days, the ghosts that had resurfaced. You okay? Marcus asked, finding Eliza alone on the venue's terrace, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. I think I am, she said, surprising herself with the truth of it. I'm not sure what happens next, but I feel like something important has shifted. With your dad? With myself, Eliza clarified. I've spent so much energy being angry with him, defining myself in opposition to his absence. What if I don't need to do that anymore? What if I can just be me, without that shadow hanging over everything? Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. That sounds like freedom. Freedom. The word resonated, capturing what she'd glimpsed in those difficult conversations with Daniel. Not an erasing of the past or a denial of the pain he'd caused, but a possibility of moving forward unencumbered by old resentments. Later that evening, as the party wound down and guests began to depart, Eliza found her mother collecting gift bags. Great party, Mom. You deserve every bit of the celebration. Grace smiled, the lines around her eyes crinkling with genuine happiness.
Thank you, sweetheart, for all of this.
She paused, studying Eliza's face. You seem different tonight. More at peace. I saw Dad again yesterday, Eliza admitted. We really talked about why he left, what happened after. Grace's expression remained neutral, but her hands stilled in their task. And did that help? Hearing his side? I think it did, Eliza said slowly. Not to excuse what he did, but to understand it better. To see him as a flawed human being instead of just the villain in our family story. That's an important distinction, Grace acknowledged. One I made years ago for my own healing. She resumed gathering gifts, her movements deliberate. I hope whatever relationship you choose to have with him brings you peace, not more pain. Would it bother you if Sophia and I reconnected with him? Grace considered this, her expression thoughtful. No, she said finally. Your relationship with your father is separate from what happened between him and me. I've made my peace with the past. You need to find your own way forward. There was wisdom in those words, a generosity that had always defined Grace Parker. Eliza hugged her mother tightly, inhaling the familiar scent of her perfume. I love you, Mom. No matter what happens with Dad, that never changes. I know, sweetheart, Grace murmured, returning the embrace. I've never doubted that. In the days that followed, Eliza thought often about choices, those made by her father in weakness, those made by her mother in strength, and those that now lay before her. The pearl necklace remained in its box, a tangible reminder of what had been lost but also of what might still be salvaged. Not the marriage that had fractured beyond repair, but perhaps some new understanding between father and daughter. She wasn't ready to call Daniel yet. The wounds of abandonment had cut too deeply for instant healing. But for the first time in 23 years, she could imagine a future where he existed somewhere in her life. Not as the father who should have been there all along, but as a flawed man seeking redemption, worthy of cautious second chances. It would be a long journey, this path toward reconciliation. There would be setbacks and difficult conversations, boundaries to establish and respect. But as Eliza stood in her sunny yellow kitchen, looking out at the life she'd built despite, or perhaps because of, the challenges she'd faced, she felt something unfamiliar unfurling in her chest. Not forgiveness, not quite, but possibility. And for now, that was enough.